Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel, and if you're new here, you're most welcome. So as you might have guessed from the intro, I'm going to be doing a cook with me video where I'll be sharing with you guys all the meals that I am prepping for the coming week, just to give you a sense of how I prepare for the coming week food wise, which is not only cost effective and convenient but also very time saving. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Let's get started. So the first meal I'm prepping is a breakfast meal, and I'm making this meal using sweet potatoes. Oh my god, you guys, if you have never tasted sweet potatoes cooked with pounded groundnuts, you might not want to eat sweet potatoes the normal way again. This is a very delicious delicacy. It's also very filling as a first meal to have in the morning. So this is how I'm preparing it. One thing to take note of is that all my recipes will have a secret ingredient. And for this recipe, the secret ingredient is the onions. I just boiled the sweet potatoes with onions and salt. And as the sweet potatoes are boiling, I am just making a paste using the pounded groundnuts, which are obviously the main ingredient for this recipe. So to make the paste, I'm simply adding some water to the pounded groundnuts. And I'm also trying to be careful not to add too much water because I want my paste to be as thick as possible, seeing as the sweet potatoes already have a lot of water in them. So once my paste is ready, I then add it to the sweet potatoes. And after that, I just stir through just to make sure that everything is properly mixed. And then at this point, I'll just leave it to boil. Next up, it's another breakfast option, and this time round it's banana bread. So just take note of the ingredients that I've listed down. And the start of this recipe is mainly just to ensure that you mix all the wet ingredients before you add in the dry ingredients. There's very few dry ingredients anyways, so it's very easy. So you can see that I already melted the butter, and from there I added an egg, and I also added a teaspoon of vanilla essence, and then I poured in some honey, and lastly I'm going to mash the bananas. So you just have to do a rough mash of the bananas. You don't have to get a smooth texture once you mash the bananas. Just make sure that everything is mashed up roughly. So like I mentioned at the start of the first recipe, all my recipes are going to have a secret ingredient. And for this particular one, ideally I should have been using flour, but I'm going to be using oats in this one, which happens to be my secret ingredient. So I'm just substituting flour with my oats, mainly because this meal is meant to be for breakfast anyway, so I might as well use oats. So yeah, stay tuned to see how this banana bread turns out. So once I pop it in the oven to bake, I'm heading right back to check on my sweet potatoes. And I'm quite happy at this point because my sweet potatoes are now ready. You can see that the gravy has thickened so well. So I'm just going to let it simmer for a little while before I turn off the heat. So this is the end result. I hope you guys try out this recipe and give me a feedback afterwards, because this is a very, very delicious meal, I can assure you. So anyways, let's move on to the next item on the menu. So we're on to tandoori chicken, or is it chicken tandoori? So I'm just simply prepping the chicken. Ideally, I should marinate the chicken overnight, but since I am cooking this chicken on the same day, I'm just going to marinate it for at least 1 or 2 hours. So right now I'm just setting the chicken for the marinade. And for the marinade, I'm going to be mixing yogurt with various spices. I'm also going to sprinkle some lemon over the chicken, and that's one bit that you won't see in the video, but please take note of that. So I've already poured in the yogurt, and I've also poured in some cumin and then coriander. And here I have cayenne pepper for the heat, mixed herbs, turmeric powder, paprika, black pepper, and lastly I'm adding about a teaspoon of salt. So thereafter I'm just making sure that the marinade is thoroughly mixed before I can then spread it over the chicken. So now I'm getting ready to reveal to you guys the secret ingredient for this recipe, which I know most of you guys would know about. That's if you're familiar with the recipe for tandoori chicken. So this one is really no secret, but what you should know is that this recipe uses food coloring. Yep. So I'm just going to dilute the powder food coloring with some water, and then after that I'll just spread it over the chicken. So at this point I'm just trying to ensure that all the food coloring has been absorbed into the chicken. So I'm just carefully and thoroughly making sure that my chicken is coated fully with all that good redness. And once that is done, I'll just set it aside to rest in the fridge for about 2 hours before I come back to it. So I just covered the bowl with cling film before I can leave it to rest in the fridge for 2 hours. And now coming back to my banana bread, you can see that it's all ready. So I just removed it from the baking tin, and I'm quite happy with the result. And that's my banana bread. Moving on, I'm also going to prepare a potato salad for my starch option. So in this case, I'll be using Irish potatoes, which I'm just peeling at the moment before I can cube them and then boil them in water. It's only after I've boiled the potatoes that I can then prepare the potato salad. So after the potatoes are done, I'll be able to show you the rest of the ingredients for this recipe. Stay tuned. So at this point, I just washed the potatoes and I'm now just seasoning with some salt, and I'm also adding about a tablespoon of butter, which is just my preferred way of cooking the potatoes. So that's my potatoes being boiled. And then this recipe also makes use of boiled eggs, so I'm just boiling some eggs there. And once the potatoes and eggs are boiling, I'm getting started with the next item on the menu, which is my spicy veggie stir fry. So at this point, I'm just getting ready to chop up my veggies. Well, not really, I'm just basically trimming the edges of the green beans, and then thereafter I'll chop up the carrots in thin strips just to make them uniform with my green beans. And so after chopping the veggies, I'll just run them through some water just to give them a good rinse. So my veggies have just been washed and I need to pat them dry, and so I'm just going to use some tissue paper for that. This process is very important because you don't want your stir fry to be soggy with water, so you just have to pat them dry. Well, not completely dry, but just to ensure that all the excess water is drained. So now I'm just prepping the rest of the ingredients for my stir fry. So here I'm just chopping up some peppers and onions before I can get started with frying my veggies. Okay, so I chopped up the onions and peppers, and now I'm just making a selection of the spices I'll be using for the stir fry, which I'll go over as I fry the veggies. But before I proceed, I just need to break off for a bit because my chicken has been marinating for a while now, and I just want to get it ready for the oven and then proceed with the rest of the meals. So back to my veggies. I normally prefer my veggies to have a bit of crunchiness, so I'm not going to over fry these veggies before I add the rest of the ingredients. I think I'm happy with the way they are right now, so I'm just going to be adding the peppers and the onions at this point. So it's always a good idea to add the spices once the onions have been added. So right now I just seasoned with some salt, and then I'll be adding all the spices that I'm using in this recipe. So I have black pepper, thyme, paprika, curry powder, and after that I'm just frying everything all together. I decided to add the peppers last because those are quite soft and they don't take too long to cook, so I just decided I'll add them at the end. I'll also be adding some garlic at some point, and I decided to also add it later because I'm using the paste and not the fresh garlic. So in order to avoid the veggies becoming soggy with the garlic paste, I just decided it's more appropriate to add it at the end. And finally, I'm adding the peppers. And after this, I will be revealing to you guys a secret ingredient for this recipe. So once I added the peppers, I'm just continuously stirring through, making sure everything is all mixed And here comes the secret ingredient. It's my soy sauce. So this completes the cooking process for this recipe. Once I add the soy sauce and stir through, the veggies will now be ready to serve, or rather to package for the meal prep. And there you have it. My veggie stir fry is ready. Coming back to my potato salad, I'm just quickly preparing all the ingredients that are required for it. And in this case, you guys, in case you haven't noticed, I am revealing the secret ingredient at the very start. So my secret ingredient happens to be the fruit that I'll be adding to the salad, just to give it that sweet and sour taste at the same time. So yes, the apple is indeed the secret ingredient. I'm just peeling it and then cubing it before I can mix everything up in the potato salad. So here's my chopped apple, green pepper and onion, and now let's get mixing. So I just brought a bowl in which I poured the boiled potatoes, and along with everything else, all the other ingredients. And let's not forget the boiled egg. So I cubed the boiled egg as well, and I'm also adding it to the salad. And I'll also season with some salt and pepper. And lastly, I will be adding the mayonnaise, which would act as the salad dressing. So after that, I'm just mixing everything together and my salad is ready. And finally, the last item on the menu is my salmon. And fortunately, the salmon had already been grilled and stored away in the freezer. So basically what I'm just doing here is making a gravy and then adding on the salmon afterwards. So I decided I was going to make a white sauce, but I want to give it a bit of a twist, because I just realized I haven't cooked anything with tomatoes in it. So I want to make white sauce but include some tomatoes as well. So at this point, I'm just melting butter and then I'm adding some oil before I can then add my onions, garlic, and then season with salt and pepper and add the tomatoes later. So my gravy is now ready, and so I'm now just introducing another ingredient, which is my whipping cream, because ideally I was going to make white sauce, but obviously I've twisted the recipe a little bit by adding tomatoes. And if you've noticed, I also don't have mushrooms in here. So the alternative to mushrooms is what will form my secret ingredient, which is coming up soon. So I've just added the salmon at this point, and I'll just let it simmer for a bit before adding the last ingredient. So my salmon is now ready, and I'm just going to toss in the last ingredient, which is the secret ingredient that I reserved from the potato salad. So because these potatoes are already boiled, I prefer to add them as the last item so that I don't overcook them at the end. So this is the end of my cooking. I just need to give the salmon a few more minutes to simmer, and thereafter I'll be checking on the chicken tandoori before I can pre-pack everything. So like I mentioned, this process of prepping meals ahead of time is really cost effective, and most importantly, it's very time saving. I think it saves me about 5 hours of cooking time in the week. So it's a very effective way of managing time. I would highly recommend it. And if you're going to cook in batches, if you're going to do a lot of meals, like a variety of meals as I have done, I would also recommend that you freeze some of the meals until you're ready to make use of them. So otherwise, thank you so much for cooking with me. I hope you enjoyed all the recipes. I look forward to your feedback, and take care. Thank you. Bye.